This story begins as our protagonist is summoned to a new world by a goddess named Norn. Norn apologizes to our hero
はい。
あなた他の人たちの紹介に巻き込まれちゃったみたいなの。
and explains that he was summoned by accident. She says that the Otherworlder's summoning spell randomly selects a group of chosen ones from a list. Our hero was excluded from this list, but somehow was still picked by the spell. The spell is dangerous enough to destroy the entire world, which is why it's forbidden. However, the nation activated it under reckless conditions. Norn was infuriated when she heard about the activation.
剣で使いやがって。
女神が腐っていった。
So she acted quickly to stop it. Unfortunately, she failed to halt the spell, which is why she brought our hero to this place temporarily. The real chosen ones made it all the way through to the Empire, but our hero realizes that he was just a mistake, and he just wants to go home. Unfortunately for him, that won't be possible. Norn reveals that she was so upset that she completely patched the forbidden spell so it could never be used again. Not only is our hero stuck in this new world, but Norn also reveals that he no longer has a body to return to.
なっちゃったし。
体ないの？なんで？
対象外だからいろいろとばっちり受けたみたいなの。
All he can do now is restart his new life in this new world. The problem is that he can't go to the Empire with the others because he isn't a real chosen one, and he would be treated poorly. Norn assures him that she will send them to a great nation instead, one that is similar to the ones found in fairy tales. Our hero Takumi is hesitant, but Norn promises to give him her blessing. Our protagonist learns that he will now be 17 years old instead of 4D like he was in his past life. Instead of being a salaryman, he now will be able to obtain one of several combat or production jobs. Takumi would like to live a piece of life away from monsters, so he plans to choose a production job. Norn gently gives our boy some things to help him on his journey and sends him on his way. After crashing down to his new world, our hero discovers that he's no longer a hideous loser. He checks his stats to see that he really does have the goddess's blessing, but decides to keep it a secret to avoid any problems. Our boy then goes through testing some of his abilities and is delighted to find that he really is in a fantasy world.
ノックボール。
After flexing his powers, Takumi finds a tree branch. He uses his handy blacksmithing skill to turn it into a spear and acquires the woodworking skill for doing so. Takumi then uses his appraisal skill to see that there's a treasure trove of herbs nearby. After picking too many of them, he realizes that he doesn't have enough room in his bag. Luckily, he remembers that Norn gave him a special item box. He made it specially for him, and it provides infinite storage. Just some little run begs Takumi for help, and Takumi prepares for battle. Our valiant warrior fears that Bugs Bunny might be carnivorous, but he must act quickly. The rabbit-filled bunny attacks them, but Takumi quickly puts a hole in the monster. He earns the swordsmanship skill, but it is a shock that a beginner like him could win his first battle. Takumi is now a warrior level 1, but he freaks out because he didn't want a combat job. The little Braddox explains that she's from a nearby village and happily agrees to take our hero there. She says that he should take the rabbit because they're delicious, so Takumi puts it in his storage. The kid is amazed by Takumi's skills, but he is shocked. She shouldn't have been able to see his item box because he said it was to be concealed. Meanwhile, at the Empire, 3 students from Takumi's old world try to figure out what just happened to them. A woman explains that they are heroes and they were summoned so they could use their powers to save this world. She introduces herself as the first empress of the Sidonia Empire, named Elizabeth. While the boys are entranced by her weird-looking face, the girl named Akane receives the goddess's blessing in secret. A message tells her to trust her instincts, and Akane can immediately tell that Elizabeth cannot be trusted. Back with our boy, he is thanked by Molly's parents for saving her. Takumi's given permission to stay in the village, and he's ecstatic to hear that there's a vein of ore nearby. This means that this place is heaven for craftsmen like Takumi and a blacksmith named Boban. Unfortunately, this village doesn't have an inn, but Takumi is shocked when Boban says that they can just build him a house. The villagers begin preparing for the build, and Takumi shocks everyone when he levels the ground with earth magic. Doing so also gives him the mana manipulation skill. Takumi loses a bunch of energy, but everyone is still amazed that he can use magic at all. The others then tell him not to worry because they can handle building the house from here. A while later, Takumi settles in his new home. He credits his woodworking, blacksmithing, and carpentry skills for allowing him to make some nice furniture. Takumi still doesn't like how the warrior job was selected for him, but he's relieved to change it into what he really wanted, the alchemist job. Takumi the alchemist then turns to a table with some iron ore, silver ore, and copper ore that he mined earlier. He also has magic iron ore, which is said to be imbued with mana. Takumi prepares to make them into ingots and remembers that it usually takes a huge furnace to accomplish. Luckily, this is a fantasy world, and Takumi can just use magic. He's delighted to finally be able to do some alchemy, and he gets to work. He explains that alchemy is comprised of 5 techniques: decomposition, extraction, pulverization, synthesis, and recomposition. It's a strenuous process, but Takumi is excited by all the things he can make now. Later that night, Molly visits her boy, but she is shocked to discover that he is almost gone. After getting scolded and recovering, Takumi just goes right back to doing alchemy without taking any breaks. The only time he would even slow down is when he was being checked up on by the girls. Takumi then uses the ingots he made to create utensils and other useful tools. After all the work, his alchemist level skyrocketed to level 32. Things didn't stop there, as Takumi used his magic to help Boban create the finest weapon he has ever created. This sent Takumi's blacksmith job all the way to level 40. He then asked Mary's father for some potions so he could teach himself how to make them. Mary's father agreed as long as Takumi promised to sell the potions to him after he learned how to make them. Takumi now mixes the herbs like a diabolical madman, but notices that the potion he makes is different from the sample he was given. He can sense mana emitting from it as well and wonders if it's because he used water magic instead of normal water. Moments later, we find Takumi eating some random plant, and things take a painful turn. Luckily, he has the heal spell to recover, and Takumi reveals that he ate the poisonous plant on purpose. It's the quickest way to gain resistance and raise light magic skill.
耐性をつけるのと手っ取り早く光属性魔法のスキルを上げるため
It's pretty tough on his body, but he finds relief in knowing that at least he cannot use purification magic. The relief is short-lived, however, as a giant pig monster appears. The Takumi dagger and spear are useless against a powerful beast. And it sends him flying. Takumi is in a really bad spot as the monster prepares for another attack, so he uses several spells to defend himself. Unfortunately, they do nothing, and Takumi desperately tries to think of a solution. Just then, he panics as he discovers that another monster is trying to attack him from behind. It turns out that the spider is injured, but that doesn't stop it from protecting Takumi. Unfortunately, Takumi is left to defend himself again after the little guy pays a price for distracting the monster. He freaks out as nothing has worked so far, but he remembers that he has one more thing to try. Takumi's last option is to try and use his alchemy. He uses Decompose on the beast. And luckily it works, making our boy victorious. Takumi limps over to the injured spider to thank it and close its wound. He prepares to leave, but is shocked when he earns the tame skill and the spider becomes his pet. Takumi asks if the spider wants to join him on his adventure, and the little guy happily agrees. Takumi names it Mabel and is stunned when it instantly evolves. When Takumi returns to the village, everyone is amazed to see that he defeated a giant boar. They are horrified when they see that Takumi is being attacked by a spider, but he explains that he actually tamed it. What's most impressive is that insect monsters aren't even supposed to be tameable. While everyone feasts on the boar, Mary's father tells Takumi that he should go to a big city to sell the leftover parts of the monster for lots of money. As the guys watch the celebration, they acknowledge that their little village has gotten much livelier since Takumi showed up. However, they are sure that Takumi's destined for great things, and he's not the kind of person to stay in a small village elsewhere. Norn is glad to see that Takumi is doing well with his adventure. Another goddess wonders what Norn is planning because she granted Takumi a special body and even gave him her blessing. That isn't all, as it's revealed that Norn also sent Takumi one entire year into the past before the Empire activated the summoning spell. Norn denies doing it for any particular reason, but she obviously sees something special in our hero. Later, Takumi scolds Maple for a strange reason. It turns out that while our hero was asleep, His new pet used its webs to trap Takumi. The little spider apologizes, but she points out that Takumi has been really busy, so she was getting lonely. Takumi acknowledges that it's his fault because he has been too focused on potion making and other work. He apologizes to Maple and promises to take the day off so he can play with her. Little Maple couldn't be happier, but Takumi's guest is terrifying. Takumi quickly assures her that Maple isn't trying to eat him alive or anything, but Martha takes a strange interest in Maple's spider silk. Moments later, Martha amazes her friends with the coat she made using the spider's silk. The ladies explain that the spider silk is a luxury item to Takumi, who is perplexed by the fuss. It's extremely hard to find because usually the nobles buy it all up. The girls are extremely happy, and they all think Maple. Martha asked the little silk producer to make some thread with more elasticity, but Takumi tries to explain that Maple doesn't understand anyone other than him. Martha then tries to speak to her like a child. Surprisingly, this works, and Takumi can't believe that they're actually communicating. Takumi reminds Maple that they were supposed to play together, but she has a newfound purpose in life, and she tells him that she's too busy to play. This works out for our boy because he has other things to do, and at least his pet is happy. Takumi thinks about how he has been in this village for a month already, but he wants to head to the city soon so he can study alchemy and become more skilled. The only problem is that he doesn't know how to tell everyone that he wants to leave because they have been so nice to him. At the forge, we see that Boban has made a set of armor for Takumi. Boban says that he will have to reinforce the boots for all that kicking Takumi likes to do, but Takumi reminds him that he isn't a fighter, he is a producer. This makes Boban laugh because there isn't a single producer alive that could just walk into a forest and defeat a giant boar like Takumi did. Just then, Bonga arrives, and Boban says that it will be lonely without Takumi. Takumi has no clue what they are talking about, but it turns out that the guys knew all along that Takumi would be moving on soon. In order for his production job to grow, he must go to the city where demand will be higher and there will be a more reliable supply of materials. As it so happens, a trader from Bolton City will be coming in the next week, and the guys have already arranged for Takumi to ride in his carriage. The guys completely understand how Takumi feels, so our hero thanks them for everything. Afterwards, Takumi goes to find Martha, who's carrying around some rabbit innards. Apparently, they are the most delicious part, but they need to be processed properly to remove any diseases and parasites. Unfortunately, they don't have the tools to do so, so the innards have to be thrown away. Luckily, our boy has some skills, and he explains that he can just use purification magic. Takumi quickly purifies the disgusting-looking innards and explains that it's now safe to eat Martha's stunt to see that he can use light magic, and she thanks him because the rabbit innards don't have to go to waste. However, she warns Takumi that it would be better if he never showed that magic he just used to anyone. It turns out that only a few people in the entire world can use light magic. It's so rare that those with enough skill can make their living off that alone. Thankfully, no one in this village will say anything, but it wouldn't be safe to show anyone outside of the village. After that, Takumi spent the next week pouring all of his power into the village's development. He has grown to care a great deal about the villagers, and he wants to make the village as safe as he can for them to live in. He also wants to make their lives more convenient, and he wants to repay them for all they've done for him. He accomplishes this by replacing the wooden village wall with the stone wall and by using his alchemy to make taps for all the kegs. At the end of the week, the trader is shocked to see how much the village has been upgraded. Takumi is introduced to the trader named Papik, and Papik explains that he owns a trading company in the city. Takumi's ready to say goodbye, but first he explains to Bonga that he finished some more potions. Papik is amazed to see this, and Takumi reveals that he had 100 of the same potion delivered to Bonga's house. Takumi wants to make sure that there's enough for the entire village, and he asked for them to be distributed to everyone in case anything happens. The trader is absolutely shocked by what he sees, and Takumi confirms that it's a healing potion he made himself. Patpek nearly loses his mind from disbelief and takes a very close look at the potion. Jesta and the other villagers arrive to say farewell, and Molly says goodbye to the sleeping Maple. Martha gives Takumi a sweet-looking coat and reveals that all the ladies made it for him. That is what they use Maple's threads for, and Takumi says that he will cherish it forever. Takumi gets emotional as he thanks everyone for being so nice to him, and he says goodbye. As they all wave goodbye, Takumi thinks about how this was the first place he lived in his new world, and he will always consider it his hometown. Takumi's new friends are moved by how much the villagers care about Takumi, and they introduce themselves. Rilel is the redhead, Bigar is the baldy, and Heath is the blonde guy. Together they are the C-rank adventuring party known as Lion Fong. They are serving as bodyguards for Papik, but they are because this area is pretty peaceful. They wouldn't mind it if some monsters appeared, but Takumi's thinking the exact opposite. The guys wonder why Takumi's holding so tightly to his bag, so Takumi reveals that his pet killer spider is inside. The guys are terrified, but Rello still wants to get a peek. He tries to call Maple out, but Takumi is shocked when Maple bashes the guy in the face. He blames Raylo for his behavior, and he wonders if the incident will make Maple fear humans. Luckily, this isn't the case, as she has grown to like Bigar. Bigar is a father after all, so it's no surprise. Papik calls on Takumi and wonders if he would be willing to sell some of his potions, and the carriage halts, and the guys wonder if a monster has appeared. Takumi is horrified when he sees a large group of goblins, but the guys tell him not to worry. Papik also tries to assure him that it's no big deal, but he is terrified. The guys then show their expertise as they make quick work of the goblins. Some of the goblins even try to attack the carriage. Barillo takes them out after taking the magic stones from the beasts. The rest of their trip was peaceful. 3 days later, they arrive at the city. Takumi went to the Adventurers Guild with Lion's Fong, who were going to report the success of their escort quest. Takumi also needed to register with the guild in order to stay in the city and to register Maple as a pet. Takumi was hoping to register with an alchemist guild, but the city doesn't have one. Han, the receptionist, explains, however, that it's still helpful to register at the Adventurers Guild so he can use his guild card as identification. As long as he takes just one simple quest every month, the card won't expire. In the end, Takumi decided to register with the Adventurers Guild, and he registered Maple as his pet. Later, Takumi explains to Papik that he has 100 potions. Papik offers him 10 silver for each healing and stamina potion, and 50 silver for each mana potion. That's a whole ton of money. Money for our boy, because it translates to about 7 million yen in his old world. Oddly, Papik even apologizes for offering so little and explains that he's only doing so because Takumi hasn't made a name for himself yet. This is all too good to be true, so Takumi wonders if the traitor has an ulterior motive. But Papik doesn't seem like the type to deceive others. Just then, Papik changes the subject to ask Takumi about his living situation. He knows that Takumi plans to set himself up as a producer, so Papik recommends that he find a home with a workshop. Takumi doesn't have enough saved up to buy a house, but Papik reveals that if he's willing to rent, then his company can recommend a place. Things are moving too fast for Takumi, but Papik has already called for someone to show him the house for rent. Takumi is done to see that the place is a mansion, and he is told that the rent is 1 gold and 50 silver a month. That's much lower than Takumi expected, so he wonders if the place is haunted. Takumi would be able to afford the rent with the money from selling his potions to Papik, and the place even has a shed for his workshop. Takumi tells Maple that this will be their new home, and he agrees to rent the giant place. As they walk through the city, Takumi can't help but wonder about the strange stench that he has smelled since arriving. He is told that it's coming from the source. The nobles use magical purifying devices to treat the sewage from their mansions, but the rest of the city doesn't. Magic purifying devices have to be excavated from dungeons or ancient ruins, so they are expensive. The city can't afford it, and Takumi can't believe that they don't purify the sewers at all. He is told that priests are hired to purify them periodically, but they just have to bear it for the most part. The next day, Takumi and Maple move into their new home. Our thoughtful hero already had plans to repair the city's outer walls, but they will have to wait as he has something more important to worry about. Something that could mean life or death. After mixing some clay with some quartz, Takumi uses magic to shape something he is working on. He then uses some fire magic to heat the thing and adjust the temperature. He then uses space-time magic to shorten the time it needs to bake. It's a difficult process, and Takumi must even stabilize his project using alchemy. All his efforts result in just what he wanted, and he levels up several skills along with his alchemist job. Afterwards, Takumi is all tired out, but it was all worth it. It turns out that his life and death project was actually to make a toilet just, and Takumi hears a terrifying scream, and he's shocked to find that Maple has captured an intruder. It turns out to be Papik, but Maple says that she was just entertaining him. Takumi says that only children would be entertained by this, but Papik surprisingly finds his capture very soothing. After being set free, Papik asks to use the restroom. Papik is stunned by what he finds, and Takumi has to explain what a toilet is. That isn't all, as the alchemist also attached the magical device to it. After finishing business, the toilet uses purification to break the waste down into clean water and a small amount of inorganic material. This makes Papik wonder if Takumi has an aptitude for light magic. But our boy remembers what Martha said. He has to keep it a secret, so he begs Papik not to tell anyone. Papik promises not to say anything, but he begs Takumi to make at least another 100 of the toilets. It would be a lot of work, but Takumi is sure that he can do it if he has the materials. Papik is certain that Takumi will need a helping hand, which is okay because our boy was planning to hire someone eventually. Papik had something else in mind as he recommended forming a contract with a slave. Considering Takumi's talents, Papik believes he should contract a slave bound to secrecy by magic. They could also serve as his protection and manage the mansion. Takumi is stunned and wonders why he would need to be protected. Papik explains that Takumi has announced aptitude for light magic, and that means he's considered to be chosen by God. At least that is what is said by the Church of Divine Light. The church scoops up anyone with aptitude for light magic and profits from exploiting their healing magic. Surely they would not just ignore the light magic used by Takumi's toilets. Takumi, of course, wonders if it's a good idea to make 100 of them. But Papik has an idea there is a way to get them made, and he knows how important it is that no one knows Takumi was behind it. Step 1 is making sure that Takumi gets himself a slave. However, Takumi is against using slaves. Papik can't really understand, but Takumi would rather do it all himself if those are his only options. It's quite a task, so Papik doesn't think it's possible. But they are interrupted when Takumi's guild card begins to glow. It's a message reminding Takumi that he must complete a quest to keep his registration. It is requested that he go to the Adventurers Guild before the deadline, and Takumi realizes that he really does need some extra hands. Papik knows the perfect place as he takes Takumi to the Mullen Company, the city's most trustworthy slave trader. Papik tells him to wait at the company's entrance while he prepares a meeting, but our boy ends up wandering into a garden. And there, he finds a girl that he can't help but stare at. This girl, Koli, tells him to go home, and Takumi is stunned. The owner of the trading company introduces herself to Takumi. Papik explains that Takumi is reluctant to form a slave contract, but the owner can't understand why. Takumi explains that contracting a slave is something that just wasn't done in the land he was born in. The owner agrees that forming a contract with a slave would bond them to his service, but things are done a bit differently here in the Kingdom of Barkula. Here, slave rights are actually protected, and the rules are very straightforward. The owner pledges to honor the slave's general rights and provide food, clothing, and shelter. Both parties are forbidden from causing harm to one another. Forcing a slave to perform actions not outlined in the contract is forbidden. As for the slaves, they are prohibited from sharing information about their owners with others. This is pretty different from what Takumi expected, and Mullen explains a different kind of contract. Those who became slaves due to debt form a contract unless and until they repay their debts. Criminals can accept a contract in order to reform and secure a means to earn a living. Prisoners of war can accept a contract to earn a place to live. There are also contracts formed with those attacked and captured by thieves or bandits who illegally force them into slavery. Papik explains that Takumi would prefer to have one of the war slaves because they cannot be freed without their master's permission. The nosy owner wonders why, so Papik simply explains that Takumi's a producer with skill and talent that others cannot hope to mimic. She wants to hear what our boy has to say, so he declares that he wants to be able to focus on his work as much as possible. The problem is, he must also do quests for the Adventurers Guild. He's struggling to handle his daily affairs, so he needs someone who can manage the mansion and help handle all the housework. He also has many skills that should be kept confidential because he can't guarantee that trouble won't find him. Furthermore, he will likely have to venture into dangerous places to gather materials. In addition to protecting him, Takumi would like someone who can fight and accompany him during his travels. This makes sense to Milan, but she determines that he will need 2 slaves. A girl named Maria is called in, and Milan explains that she was kidnapped by bandits when she was very young, and she has no family left. She's been trained in reading, writing, and general housekeeping. Takumi describes what the mansion is like, including how many rooms there are, and Maria's confident that she can handle it all by herself. She notices something about Takumi's behavior, and Takumi says that it's because of how she looks. Someone like her probably has plenty of takers, so he wonders why she's still available. Maria is flustered by the compliment and explains that she can only do general housekeeping. Takumi says that's exactly what he needs, but Maria feels the need to clarify. She can only do housekeeping, and she refuses to develop plot. Takumi's the one to be flustered, and he makes it clear that he won't be needing that from her. Maria questions him again, just a double check, and Takumi confirms that it would be wrong for him to ask for that. Maria is happy with everything, so she agrees to form a contract with Takumi. As for the next slave, Mulan apologizes as she doesn't have any war slaves at the moment. Maria reminds her that they have someone named Sophia, but Mulan tells her not to butt in and sends her to go get her things ready before leaving. Takumi is curious about this other person, but Mulan explains that Sophia has problems. This makes him even more interested for some reason, but Mulan simply says that she will contact him when they find someone else that meets his criteria. Takumi interrupts her, however, and asks if he could meet this girl. He isn't sure why himself, but assumes that it might have to do with his intuition skill. Takumi has a strong urge telling him not to back down, and Maria's face was very serious when she brought up Sophia. Takumi is taken to Sophia's room, and Milan explains that she was captured during a war 50 years ago. That's a really long time ago, but it's because Sophia is from a nation of elves. For various reasons, she hasn't formed a contract with anyone so far. For one, she has a large scar on her left ear. Also, her right hand and left leg have impaired movement. They are not so impaired that they cause issues with her daily life, but they ruin her ability to fight effectively. The worst part, however, is that she's had the elemental magic and sprite magic that are unique to elves sealed away. It's very likely that a curse was put on her. These are all fatal flaws for our main combatant, but Takumi still would like to speak with her alone. Mulan allows it, but Sophia's stunned. Takumi politely introduces himself, but Sophia's very cold and she tells him that she won't be of any use to him. Just then, our boy gets crazy and apologizes while grabbing onto her face. Takumi typically doesn't like to peek at other people's status, but he doesn't see any other way. He uses his appraisal ability and is stunned to find that Sophia is crazy strong. If he's able to heal the impairment in her limbs and dispel the curse, then she will become an immediate fighting asset. Mulan returns to wonder what he thinks, and Takumi declares that he wants to form a contract with Sophia. Sophia reminds him that she can't even fight, but Takumi says that he will just have to fix the reason behind that. Both girls are stunned, as they can't believe that Takumi can do something about the issues that have shackled Sophia for over 50 years. Takumi's confident that he can, and he's almost at the level where he will be able to do so. Mulan is very intrigued and declares that she will entrust Sophia to him. This upsets Sophia to no end, so Takumi asked her to be honest and tell him if she's annoyed by him. Sophia doesn't really admit to it, and simply says that there's no reason to ask a slave what they want. Moments later, all the paperwork is done, and Maria arrives to thank Takumi for contracting Sophia as well. The magic portion of the contract is up next, and when it's over, the deal is done. Maria vows to work hard so Takumi will keep her for many years, and even Sophia thanks him for having her. Takumi declares that the pleasure is all his, but Sophia says that he doesn't need to be so polite. Takumi then brings them to his house, where he is greeted by Maple. Sophia fears that the spider is killing him, but Takumi reveals that it's his pet. Of course, this stuns the girls because they have never heard of a killing spider as a pet. The girls are then stunned further when Takumi reveals that they will each get their own room. He also has a really large bath for them to use, but the girls think that he should go first. Takumi says it's no big deal as he installed a magic device in the bath. It always keeps the water clean, so it doesn't matter who goes first in the bath. Maria was surprised that Mulan agreed to let Sophia go. No matter how much anyone offered, she always rejected it because she wanted to keep Sophia. However, for some reason, Mulan acknowledged Takumi. Maria couldn't be happier for the both of them, but something is bothering Sophia. She caught a glance of the contract Mulan prepared, and most of Takumi's entries were blank, even his birthplace and his lineage. He thinks Takumi's concealing his real identity and fears what the reason might be. A while later, Maria's horrified to see that Takumi has done her job by making dinner. She's incredibly hard on herself and calls herself a toilet wearing clothing. Takumi apologizes and says he only did it because it was her first day. She begs them to let her do other chores, and Takumi promises that she can do everything tomorrow. Sophia points out that it's considered to be rude for slaves to eat with their masters, but he doesn't care and asks them if they would be okay with joining him. He doesn't want them to call him master either, so the girls agree to be informal. At Pepe's trading company, Pepe gives Takumi the items he ordered. He wraps them tightly as they are delicate and valuable, and Takumi promises to be careful with them. On his way home, Takumi sees a church he never noticed before. Inside, he sees a statue of Nolene, the goddess that brought him to this world. He wonders why she was bad-mouthing Sidonia when she first summoned him, and she surprisingly teleports to explain why. Our boy is shocked, so Nolene explains that he offered her his prayers, so she thought she would simply call him up. As for his question, Nolene says that she has nothing to do with Sidonia and their Church of Divine Light. There are two religions in this world, the Church of Creation and the Church of Divine Light. Their Church of Creation has always worshipped Nolene from the start, but the Church of Divine Light was created later along with his god. That doesn't exist according to Nolene. After the Holy Empire of Sidonia, it was found they used force to rapidly spread the influence of their Church of Divine Light. They even went as far as to oppose their Church of Creation. Nolene refuses to interfere in the petty affairs of humanity, so Sidonia was able to activate their Otherworlder summoning spell. That's what led to Takumi's accidental summoning. Nolene doesn't like for him to bring up old mistakes and responds by saying that is why she gave him her super blessing. The blessing will endure eternally, but she cautions that as he broadens his horizons, the aspect of the blessing that facilitated his growth and interactions with others will unravel. Simply put, his tutorial for beginners will be over. Takumi will find himself hitting walls that would have been easy for him before, and he will likely start encountering people with ill intent to harm him. Takumi realizes that everything did seem to be going too well. He has met tons of nice people and has only been to great places. That was all because of her blessing. From now on, things won't be so easy, so no, and warns them to be careful. It's up to Takumi to decide how things will play out from here on, but he is ready. 1 year into the future. At the Holy Empire of Sidonia, the king is told that the heroes they summoned are currently training. It was a huge undertaking for them to summon the 3 heroes, so the king needs them to be very strong. The heroes were hesitant at first, but Elizabeth managed to persuade them. Outside, we watch as the summoned heroes train. Akira and Yamato spark with some guy, but the trainers are not impressed. This makes Yamato have a flashback to the old world, where he was the favorite to win a karate tournament. He failed, however, and even lost to a first year. Fueled by this failure, Yamato goes even harder with the sparring. Akane isn't interested in performing acts of violence, but Elizabeth shows up to explain that she must train. It's the only way for her to gain the strength needed to save this world. Akira then shows some behavior as he vows to protect Akira no matter what. Elizabeth is pleased to see such a reliable hero, but Akane can tell that she's very dangerous. Going back 1 year with our hero. He arrives home with a fall before Sophia can help pick up his things. Takumi rushes to put his mystery package in his item box. This, of course, doesn't help Sophia's suspicions, and Takumi says that he will be locking himself in his workshop for a few hours. He says that they will have to eat dinner without him, but Sophia feels shocked by what she saw. The package he had was wrapped in magical wrapping paper, and it makes her wonder what he's hiding. Later, she decides to go see what he's doing in his workshop and is horrified to hear him talking to himself like a psychopath. He sounds really excited about something, and she shivers in terror when she sees Takumi cut himself. Takumi uses Healing Cure to fix himself right up, but he realizes how crazy this is. Unfortunately, it's the only way to level up his skills quickly. He thinks about how Maria did something cruel earlier, so this forces Sophia to barge in. She angrily demands to know what he's planning to do to Maria and promises to get revenge if he ever hurts her. Our boy has no clue what she's talking about, and his ability shows that Sophia is suffering from extreme exhaustion. It also shows her hand injury, so he decides to start there. He uses Heal on her, and even though it's a light wound, the curse on her makes it really difficult to heal. Our boy Takumi still manages to heal her hand, and he even levels up while she recovers. Maria explains that Sophia has been exhausted for a really long time. Anytime something makes her run around, she ends up getting really tired. It's most likely the curse, so Takumi gets to work. He starts off with this girl called Dispel and uses extra heal on top of that. Maria then watches in amazement as Takumi even fixes her cut off. A year later, Sophia wakes up and feels very different compared to before. She tells Maria to run for her life because their psychotic master isn't the person Maria thinks he is. Maria completely agrees with her, but only because Takumi is better than she could have imagined. Sophia fears that Takumi seduced her, but Maria just tells her to relax and shows Sophia her fixed ear. Sophia's heart begins to pound as she can feel her magic again, and Maria reveals that she has been completely cured. After Maria explains everything, Sophia goes to see Takumi. Takumi realizes that he needs to clear things up, so he reminds her how he said that he needed one more level on his light magic skill in order to dispel the curse placed on her. Also, the fluid he did that knife into was extracted from a highly poisonous herb, which he got from Papik. He was using it to raise his level by repeatedly applying it to a wound and casting heal. Finally, healing her exhaustion leveled him just enough to allow him to use the extra heal ability. Sophia brings up how he said Maria was cruel, but that was only because she threw some stuff out by accident. She wonders why he was doing all that dangerous stuff, and Takumi reminds her that he said he would take care of everything. Sophia begins to cry as she realizes that he did it all for her, so Takumi desperately apologizes. She says it's not necessary, Siri, however, and she swears her lifelong loyalty to him. Takumi says it's good to have her, and they share a nice moment. We see that Noline is watching them, and she checks to see what's going on 1 year in the future. I appreciate you viewing my anime recap, Unruly Family. Please let me know what you think about this anime recap by liking, sharing, and commenting, and please subscribe to the channel to help us reach 5,000 subscribers.